A grieving Texas family receives a phone call. Their missing son has been found, and he's alive. He's in Spain. They're ecstatic. They want to believe. They fly across the ocean, hearts pounding, to reclaim the boy they lost. If you're ready to uncover more secrets behind the world's most fascinating cons, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. That way, you'll never miss the next twist in the world of cons, and you'll always be one step ahead of the game. When the family meets Bourdin, several years older than Nicholas, with a different accent, different eye color, different everything, they don't turn away. They hug him, weep for joy, and they take him home. As he waits for the family at the airport, Bourdin rehearses his story. Every scar, every word, every gesture. Will they see through me? Or do they need this as much as I do? But how did this impossible reunion happen? It's 1997 in Spain. Frédéric Bourdin stumbles across a missing child bulletin for Nicholas Barclay, a Texas boy who vanished 3 years earlier. Bourdin makes a call to the authorities, claiming to be Nicholas. He spins a story of abduction, torture, and escape. Just enough truth to hook desperate hearts. Imagine a man who can become anyone, a shapeshifter with 1,000 faces, and a talent for slipping into the cracks of other people's lives. Frédéric Bourdin, known to Interpol as the Chameleon, for years drifted across Europe, passing himself off as lost boys, orphans, and runaways, always searching for a new identity, a new family, a new place to belong. He was born in 1974 in Nanterre, a gritty suburb of Paris, to a teenage mother who abandoned him to take care of his grandparents. His childhood was marked by instability, loneliness, and a longing for acceptance. As a boy, Bourdin was captivated by stories of lost children or orphans, outsiders who found new families and new lives. Alienated and rootless, he began running away from home, drifting from foster care to the streets, always searching for a place to belong. He soon discovered that he could slip into new identities with ease, mimicking accents and mannerisms, and found that people's desire to believe often outweighed their skepticism. His life of deception was born from a deep hunger for love and a place in the world. Bourdin is now living in Texas, surrounded by people who want him to be Nicholas so badly. They ignore every red flag. He studies family photos, mimics mannerisms, and invents stories of trauma to explain away the differences. He wears Nicholas's clothes, sits at Nicholas's table, and calls Nicholas's mother Mom. It's a performance worthy of an Oscar, but it's also a high wire act. Every day, Bourdin wakes up knowing that one slip, a wrong detail, a forgotten memory could bring the whole thing crashing down. He's constantly improvising, feeding off the family's greed and hope, always one step ahead of suspicion. But his life as an imposter is never truly stable. In earlier cons, he was caught posing as a Spanish orphan in France. Authorities discovered his ruse when they noticed he didn't speak Spanish. In another case, he convinced the shelter that he was a traumatized teen, only to be unmasked when a social worker dug deeper into his story. Each time, Bourdin either talked his way out, vanished before the truth could catch up, or faced brief detention before resurfacing with a new identity somewhere else. In Texas, the cracks start to show. A private investigator notices the inconsistencies, the accent, the age, the physical differences. The FBI gets involved. Bourdin feels the net tightening. Still, the family clings on to the fantasy, desperate to keep their son alive, even if it means believing the unbelievable. For Bourdin, the question is always the same. How long can I keep this up? How much do they really want to know the truth? Sometimes he gets away with it. Other times he's exposed and forced to disappear, leaving behind confusion, heartbreak, and a trail of unanswered questions. The truth finally explodes. DNA tests, fingerprints, and relentless investigation reveal the impossible. Nicholas is actually Frédéric Bourdin, a 23-year-old Frenchman with a history of impersonating missing children across Europe. The fallout is devastating. The family is shattered, forced to confront the reality that their hope blinded them to the truth. Bourdin is arrested, sentenced to 6 years in prison for passport fraud and perjury. But the story doesn't end there. Bourdin's legend grows. He becomes a symbol of how easily we can be deceived when we want something badly enough. The lesson? Bourdin's greatest trick wasn't changing his face or even his story. It was exposing the human need to believe, to fill the void left by loss, even if it means ignoring the obvious. He didn't just steal an identity. He stole a family's reality and, for a while, made the whole world question what's real and what's a lie. That's the story of Frédéric Bourdin, the man who became a ghost and made us all wonder how well we really know the people we love. Bourdin later said, "People see what they want to see. I just gave them a story they needed to believe." How far would you go to fill the void left by loss? For some, the truth is too painful to face. For others, the lie is a lifeline. Now, let's analyze the emotional power of hope and the dark side of our need to fill the void left by loss. At the heart of Frédéric Bourdin's deception was his ability to sense and exploit the deepest human need, hope. Families devastated by loss, especially the parents of missing children, are often willing to suspend disbelief for even a sliver of closure. As psychologists know, hope is a force that can override logic, skepticism, and even self-preservation. Bourdin's genius was to offer precisely what his victims most desperately wanted: the return of the lost, the healing of the wound, the miracle they stopped daring to expect. But Bourdin's power didn't stop just at hope. His own life, marked by abandonment and a longing for connection, gave him an uncanny emotional intelligence. He could read the needs, grief, and vulnerabilities of others, and then become exactly what they needed: a lost son, a missing brother, a vulnerable child. This was not just manipulation. It was a compulsive drive for belonging, fueled by his own emptiness. Bourdin never forced his story. Instead, he let others do the work, subtly mirroring their hopes, emotions, and even mannerisms. He presented himself as a blank slate onto which families could project their deepest longing. By never directly claiming an identity, but allowing people to recognize him, he made the fantasy feel like their own discovery. This indirect approach bypassed natural resistance and suspicion, making the deception feel organic and self-generated. His adaptability and improvisational skills were crucial. He could invent intricate backstories on the fly and maintain them under pressure, even when confronted with contradictions. His confidence, emotional vulnerability, and willingness to appear needy or wounded made him seem authentic and trustworthy. Grief leaves a vacuum, not just of love, but of meaning and narrative. Bourdin's arrival filled that void, not only with hope, but with a compelling story. He gave families and communities something to talk about, something to focus on, something to believe in. People crave engagement and drama to stave off boredom and despair. For families paralyzed by uncertainty, Bourdin's presence was a gripping new chapter, a miraculous return that demanded attention and emotional investment. Frédéric Bourdin's greatest talent wasn't just imitation. It was his uncanny ability to sense and satisfy the hidden psychological needs of those around him. Each of his impersonations was tailored to exploit one or more of the hidden addictions that make people vulnerable to deception. The first is the need to feel needed. Bourdin often appeared as a lost, traumatized child, instantly triggering the parental instinct to protect and care for him. Families desperate to heal old wounds embraced him as someone that needed them, and, in turn, made themselves feel needed and important. The next is the need for hope. In cases like the disappearance of Nicholas Barclay, Bourdin offered hope where there had only been pain and uncertainty. The mere possibility that a missing loved one had returned was enough to override doubts and rationalize inconsistencies. The next is the need for a scapegoat. When suspicions arose, Bourdin sometimes hinted at sinister conspiracies or blamed external threats for his traumas and inconsistencies, giving families and authorities an external villain to focus on instead of questioning him too closely. The next is the need to be noticed and understood. Bourdin's stories were filled with suffering and isolation. inviting empathy and attention. He made those around him feel uniquely positioned to help and to understand him, deepening their emotional investment. The next one is the need for secret knowledge. By weaving elaborate tales of abduction, abuse, or secret organizations, he gave people the sense that they were privy to hidden truths, making them feel special, trusted, and complicit in his story. The next is the need to be right. Once a family or an authority figure accepted Bourdin's identity, their egos became invested in defending that choice. Admitting they'd been deceived would mean admitting they were wrong, a psychologically difficult leap for anyone. Then there's the need for power. Bourdin often manipulated the choices and emotions of those around him, but he also gave families a sense of agency, the chance to save him, to solve a mystery, to reclaim control over a chaotic situation. For Bourdin, and for those he deceived, these hidden addictions were the invisible threads that bound them together until the truth inevitably unraveled the illusion. Every great con is a mirror, reflecting not just the trickster, but the needs and vulnerabilities of us all. Bourdin's cons, like all great confidence games, followed a recognizable pattern, one that drew on both personal psychology and universal human frailty. The approach. Bourdin inserted himself into the narrative of a missing child, often using official channels and institutions to gain credibility and access. The build-up. He mirrored the family's hopes and memories, providing just enough plausible detail to seem authentic, while remaining vague enough for them to fill in the gaps. The convincer. The emotional reunion, the family's longing, and the validation by authorities and the community all reinforced the illusion. The hoorah. Public affirmation, the family, media, and officials all celebrating the miracle deepened the investment and made skepticism taboo. The blow-off. Only when irrefutable evidence, like DNA testing, forced the truth did the illusion collapse, leaving heartbreak, disbelief, and often a refusal to fully accept the con. Bourdin's psychological success lay in his extraordinary adaptability, his emotional intelligence, and his ability to sense and fulfill the needs of others. His own craving for connection, stemming from his own childhood instability and his abandonment, made him relentless and audacious. He was unafraid of exposure, often confessing and moving on to the next deception without shame. His victims, meanwhile, were easy marks because of their emotional vulnerability, their grief, and their desperate need for closure. Bourdin's ability to mirror their desires, appear vulnerable, and manipulate official channels made him seem both trustworthy and pitiable. The universal human desire to believe in miracles, especially in the face of loss, made even the impossible seem plausible. Bourdin's story is a chilling demonstration of how the mechanics of the confidence game, masked intent, mirroring, and the weaponization of hope can be turned against the most vulnerable. His cons succeeded not because of elaborate trickery, but because he understood and exploited the rawest human needs: hope in the face of despair, the longing for closure, and the desperate desire to believe in something better. The real danger, when the void left by loss is great enough, even the impossible can feel true, especially when someone offers us exactly what we want to believe. But what if the con isn't just about stealing an identity or a fortune? What if it's about inventing an entire country? Next time, we journey to the early 1800s, and we're going to meet Gregor MacGregor, the Scottish soldier who convinced hundreds of investors and settlers that he ruled a Central American paradise named Poyais. He sold land, titles, and dreams, none of which existed. How did one man fabricate a nation, lure the elite of London and Edinburgh, and orchestrate one of the boldest scams in history? Join us as we unravel the legend of the Cazique of Poyais and discover how hope, ambition, and a masterful story can build a kingdom out of thin air. Subscribe now and hit the bell. You won't want to miss it.